The person I choose to analyze is Rick Grimes from television The Walking Dead. Generally, he is a good father, a great leader in a worldwide zombie apocalypse. However, he becomes a more cold and calculating leader over the course of the series. He was a moral police officer, and he was a morally strong man of the law as a police officer who knew good and evil, right from wrong, and defended those who needed protection. Of course, Rick was faced with horrific decisions early on as well, like putting a small zombie child out of her mystery and murdering his best friend Sean to protect his wife and child. Later on in the series, we can see Rick be the one who has to step up and shoot Sophie, a little girl who turned into workers when no one else can. We have seen him in the blink of an eye take out two guys who are a clear threat to him and everyone else that's with him. This kind of very act, which triggered perhaps one of the most violently character transformation within the entire series. Rick had hit his moral breaking point as the complexity of the situation was further amplified upon the discovery that his wife was pregnant. This darkness, which had been summoned with Rick, eventually reared its ugly head in his speech, where he established his leadership with the group. However, he was always a good father. One constant in the series is how Rick has protected his son at any cost as a father. It could be argued that Rick hasn't always been there for Carl, but reverse can be argued that Rick's actions are almost always done with Carl in mind. When Carl is shot by Jesse's son Ron, Rick drops everything to back his son to pull through so he can show him the new world. And Rick is a phonetist all the time. He had practical wisdom, and he was trying to do right things all the time as a good father, a good husband, and a good leader. However, there's a huge event happened made Rick transform a lot in his personality. Losing Lori sent Rick over the edge of the dismantling his ability to lead the group by himself as a prison. The core of Rick is still rooted in law, despite the direction of his moral compass right now. While one could argue that Rick has turned into a shadow of Sean, he's still making decisions based on the right thing to do. This has a profound effect on not only on him but also his son Carl. Tensions arise between the two, and it ends up with Carl nearly refusing to be with his unconscious dad anymore. These conflicts are somewhat solved when Rick wakes up, but it takes one event to fully mend their relationship. The near rape of Carl. When Rick witnesses this, he beats a man throughout and stabs the over one to his content. Also just a controversial, Rick not only killed a tribe of cannibals, but tortured and humiliated them. This marked a significant change in the mentality of Rick. Any mercy he had before was gone. From that point on, Rick was primed to kill anybody who even smelled like a threat. Rick is psychologically the strongest he has ever been, because he has realized that the only way to stay alive is to keep his son alive in this new world, is by actively embracing all sides of his personality, including darkness, fury, and rage. Rick may have even been too far gone if he hadn't made it to the Alexandria. Here, he tries to rebuild the life and the person he was before, but fails. He realizes that he can balance his humanity and the monster side here, and he doesn't look back. Overall, the devolution of humanity within Rick is indicative of how morally isn't a transparent concept, and sometimes doing what is necessary to survive takes precedence over doing what is right. As the story processes, the saviors survivors move from location to location. As this exposure to the new environments continues, the characters begin to encounter more and more trials and tribulations along the way, which wraps their understanding of what is necessary in order to survive. No one amongst the entire ensemble of characters within this series understands the concept of survival at any cost better than the primary protagonist, Rick Grimes. Perhaps the most fascinating about Rick's character development as he is shaped by the new experience would be his pre-apocalyptic occupation as a sheriff. This made him a symbol which represented justice and order. In a lot of ways, Grimes' character as a way to exhibit the cooperations of this justice and order, and also to explore how sometimes the morally righteous thing to do isn't always the most effective. So Rick as an ethical egoism under the zombie apocalypse, Rick became he only cared about his son and treat everybody as a threat and only look out for his self-interest. Later in the series, after the governor and the tyranness, Rick turned dark and his tactics of preemptive attacks. As Rick's journey as a leader continues to endure the moral and psychical obstacles it encounters, his true mettle is tested and he begins to learn new lessons, not just about himself, but also the group dynamic. This is largely attributed the increasing encounters with other factions, such as Woodbury community led by the cold and calculating governor who is introduced into the prison arc of the television series. It is within this arc where the compilations of the workers themselves is compounded by the risk of other human beings whose humanity has been degraded by the experience they have had. Hence the tagline of the corresponding season, Fight the dead and fear the living. Rick's spiral into insanity within the story is a huge component of the character he currently is as he was faced extremely testing circumstances. Following the disturbing encounter with the claimers was Rick's confrontation with the cannibalistic faction known as Terminus. As Rick does battle with the antagonistic group, he menacingly pursues them to ensure they are dead even after destroying their compound. This pursuit is eventually culminates in a massacre at the hand of Rick and his allies, where Rick brutally benches Terminus leader Grace with a match and his begs for mercy. Perhaps the most chilling thing about this scene is the manner in which they are executed. All of the killings were carried out with blunt force and knives in order to spare bullets. This truly indicates the disparate nature of their circumstances. The setting itself of the massacre being a church was especially ironic considering the unsanitary nature of the act. This was also symbolic of the overall devolution of humanity and abandonment of faith and in the apocalypse. This very grim encounter marks perhaps one of the darkest story arcs for the character development of Rick displayed in his lack of mercy. This extreme experience will hardly attribute to interaction with the undead as they were with the living. The fight to keep one's humanity intact only time will tell if Rick is able to combat the darkness within before he is too far gone. And the upcoming war with the ruthless Savior led the cunning antagonist Negan will be the ultimate indicator of this. Rick adopts a more dark and assertive nature as Negan kills many Rick's people. The first-hand witnessing of the sameness around him led him gradually adapt a more primal mindset, becoming less affected by violence and death. Similarly, his perspective becomes increasingly diluted as his decreased trust in people and decreased tolerance level leads him to take no issues in risking the life of an innocent. Rick turned into cruel and immoral. In the most recently episode, when Rick went out hilltop to look for their prisoners, he promised not to kill people if they do not fight. However, he killed every one of them when he got the chance, and even lied to his people when he got back to Hilltop. Despite the threat of the Saviors and the desperation of his current situation, recent events such as the potential death of his son Carl may drive Rick to approaching the conflict in a more humane and rational manner. After reading the letter wrote by Carl before he died, Rick started to think about stopping the fight with Negan and build a better future together. The scene of Rick's group and Negan's group live together showed many times and told people that it's the life Rick dreamed about, and this is also what Carl wanted before. So in conclusion, under the zombie world, the humanity and the morality are going to be gone sooner or later, and I cannot really imagine what I will do in the same circumstances without any kind of regulations in the world. But I can sure I will try my best to protect my family, and I can understand the dehumanization of Rick. He was trying his best to protect his family away from any potential threat, even killing innocent people. He already tried his best to do right things all the time, use his practical wisdom as a police officer. To become an ethical egoism is not bad under that situation. It is a protection. If I can, I may do the same if I was in Rick's position, but I will not to kill so many innocent people, cause I want people to stick together and rebuild trust and faith and treat people with respect, even though it's the end of the world.